Hi, this is Kimberly Morris at procrastistamper.blogspot.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this cute little pumpkin favor. And my pumpkin favor opens up, and inside I have decided to put a cute little bundle of 4 Divine mini milk chocolate pieces. For this project we'll be using the Big's Large Petite Purse die. This is a steel rule die. It's going to cut out the shape of the purse and a strap for you that you can use either for the purse or you can use it to hold the chocolates inside like I've done. So I'm going to load this into my Big Shot, putting a cutting plate underneath the steel rule die. Then the die goes on top of that. Then the paper that I have cut, this is pumpkin pie cardstock cut to 5.5 by 8.5. Lay that over my die. And for many of my dies I would put a cutting pad on top to sandwich everything in. However, this die has many score lines on it, and I found that if I use a cutting pad on top, it tends to cut right through those score lines. So I'm going to use the crease pad on top, and I highly recommend the crease pad for this. In addition, each Big Shot has a different level of tolerance. Things go through there just a little more tightly than others, just depending on your Big Shot. So I just have a piece of white cardstock that I'm going to use as a shim, because I've found that when I use my crease pad, it doesn't press quite enough to cut through all the cut lines. So I want to just give it a tiny bit more space in there that it's going to have to press against, and then we'll run that through the Big Shot. Okay, when that comes out on the other side, we'll just pull that off. There's our strap. We'll set that aside. And this is our purse with all the score lines scored, and all the cut lines are cut perfectly. For this next step, I'm also going to use my Big Shot, and I'm going to use the multi-purpose platform that comes with the Big Shot. I'm going to be using an embossing folder, so I'm going to open up both tabs. I'll open up tab 2 and tab 1. So I'll just be using it flat on the pad as far down as it'll go. So I'm going to set that pad on the Big Shot, and then I'm going to take just the purse part of the die cut. There's a score line that goes right through here, and I'm going to fold that just so I can see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to put one of my cutting pads down here. I'm going to put my stripes embossing folder on top of that with my item in it, put another cutting pad on top, and run it through. However, there's a little bit of a trick to this. So I'm going to find that score line that I just folded, and I'm going to line up this score line with the end of the lines in my embossing folder. Then I'm going to close my embossing folder. We'll hold that down in place and slide this cutting pad on top of it to hold it in place, and then we'll run that through the Big Shot. Okay, when that comes out, you can see that it's got the lines on one side of the purse. So you're going to take this side of the purse, once again, flip your embossing folder over, fold right there on that score line, and line up the line with the bottom of the stripes again. Close the embossing folder, set it down on your plate, put your other cutting plate on top to sandwich it in the middle, and run that through the Big Shot. So now you have your purse cut out with the optional strap, and you have used the embossing folder to put stripes on the purse. Next step that I am going to do is punch out the black pieces that I'm going to use to decorate the front of this pumpkin. This is the Petite Penance punch, and I only want the squared off triangle, not the scallop triangle. So I'm just going to take this in from the side just until that triangle has paper in it, and I'm going to punch it. And I'm just going to slide it right over and punch 2 more. And you can see when I'm leading with that triangle, I'm going to be cutting extra stuff on the other side of the triangle each time I punch, but it's not going to affect those first 3 triangles. So these are really all we want, and we'll just clear all this away. So we can still use some more of this basic black cardstock. I'm going to use the extra large oval punch, and I'm going to cut maybe about halfway into this, the edge of this basic black cardstock with my punch. Then I'm going to cut again to where it sort of makes a little crescent shape, or a smile is what we're going to be using it for. So I'll put that into my punch a little bit further where the cutout spot is, and that's the shape that I'm going to end up with that I'm going to use. Okay, we're going to cut these pieces just a little bit more for our use in a moment. Right now, just take the purse die cut and fold it back again on all those score marks that were made with the original die. So all you're going to do is add a little bit of glue on this tab and then on this tab that you folded back. Then you'll bring the purse, fold each side closed just one at a time, line up the edges of the side with the score mark on the front of the purse, line up the edges of this side with the score mark on the back of the purse, and when we're done, this is what our purse should look like. You can see the side is parallel to the bottom, and this side, the bottom is parallel to the bottom as well. So we're good to go there. Then you're going to have the top to deal with. This is going to fold over, and the little end is going to stick right down in that notch. In order to keep this with a little bit of a fold, I like to take my bone folder and just gently, you don't want to pull apart your box, run the bone folder over it to sort of give it a little bit of a curve. And you may need to put your fingernail or the tip of your scissors down in this little hole that the notch goes in order to get it to fit down in there. Once you get it started, it should go ahead and just go right in there each time. Okay, now we're going to come back to our shapes that we're going to use on the front of our purse favor to make it look like a little jack-o'-lantern. So I'm going to take two of my triangles, and I'll cut the eyes, just sort of figure out how big I want them. If I cut two at the same time, then I know I'm getting them both the same size. With the third triangle, I'm going to want a nose. I'll want it a little bit smaller than that. So I'll take my Stampin' Up paper snips and cut just a smaller one for the nose. Then I'll take this little oval smile that we punched out and just take my paper snips and cut in there in the shapes of little triangles here and there to create his toothy little grin. Then we simply glue all of these features onto the front of the purse. I like to use the Tombow multi-glue for that. So once you get your pieces situated where you want, you're all set. I like to slide the nose down to be in line with this curve of the front of the purse. The next thing I'm going to do is use the modern label punch. I'm going to punch out a piece of baked brown sugar cardstock. And this is what your punch is going to look like. You can use your bone folder or your fingers to just sort of gently curl it. What you're going to want to do is fold it in half. So this is exactly folded in half. Then you'll take it and put it back into the side of the modern label punch. You want it to go right down through those two layers of the punch, just so that the very edge of it is sticking through the punch, and then punch again. Now this gives you two pieces. If you were doing a pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern card, you could use just one of these on your card and it would look like a little stump. But what I'm going to do, since I'm using this on a 3D box, is I'm going to glue these back to back, except for a very small portion at the bottom, which I'm going to fold back equally on each side. I'm just going to do that roughly. It really doesn't matter if you kind of bend and mangle the paper. So I have bent it back a little bit on each side so that you can see it sort of sticking out. That way I'll know where to put my glue on the back of each piece so that it won't interfere with that space at the bottom. There we go. So I line it up. It's ready to go. Now I have this little stand on the bottom, and all I need to do is put my glue on the bottom of that, and we'll adhere that to the top of the jack-o'-lantern. And when you're doing this part, if you would like to open up the top of the jack-o'-lantern just so you can press on it and sort of get some pressure underneath that stem so that it can grab a little bit better while you're adhering it, then go ahead and go for it. And there you have your jack-o'-lantern with the stem. Now all we need to do is add a little bit of foliage. This next part is really fast. I just have a little strip. It's probably about a 1/2 inch, it looks like, of cardstock. This is Always Artichoke is the color that I'm using, and I'm just cutting little strips with it. You can cut as many as you like. I think I'll just use these 3. And what you're going to want to do is take your bone folder and curl them. You could cut out just little leaves if you want them to be shapes of leaves. I liked the way that these are kind of wispy if you play with them a little bit. And then I took my paper piercing tool. When you get your paper piercing tool, it comes with this little rubber cover. Make sure you keep that because you don't want this traveling around on your desk poking you in the hand or poking someone else. It's just a real nice way to keep it safe. I just go ahead and leave that on. You could use a pencil or whatever else you have that's really thin that you can just sort of roll these around and just give them a little bit of twirl and curve. It doesn't have to be perfect or beautiful or anything. And then I've got my little wispies going on there. And all I do at that point is put a tiny little dot of this Tombow adhesive to the side of each one of these and press 1 or 2 of the ends of these wisps on there and just let them sit and dry. Once they're dry and they're held in place real good, then you can sort of play with them, curl them up a little bit more, and get them fixed to look exactly like you want them. So we'll just set that aside and let that dry. Meanwhile, I'm going to take my Divine Chocolates. I have 4 of them here. These are the mini milk chocolate pieces. And I used 4 because it fits just really perfectly down in the favor. And instead of putting the strap over the top of the purse, I'm going to use this to hold the Divine Chocolates. So what I did was set the chocolates on the strap, hold the ends of this little strap to where they're even, and then set that down on my work surface and basically just sort of press down so I can find where I'm going to need to adhere that. So you can see when I press down, it's sort of going to pull it against these corners so that when I take it away, I can see where I need to adhere this little band. And then all you need to do from here is load your chocolates into your little favor. I like to sort of bend the top of this just a little bit so it'll curve with the top of the purse. Lay your treats in there, close up your favor, and it's ready for gift giving. So you can see the faces that I've made for each of my favors look just a little bit different. You can cut out all your little pieces all at the same time and use them for a template to cut out the next one, or just leave them individual. One more tip that I wanted to share with you. Sometimes you'll have a problem with the top of the purse just coming open and not staying closed down inside with that little tab. If you do have that problem, then just take a little bit of your Tombow multi-glue and you'll want to put a very small amount, just dab it on here, and you'll need to let it dry. When you let it dry, it will create a temporary bond, meaning it will be sticky, sort of like a post-it note. So I'm going to set that aside. This is one that I've already done, and it has a little bit of adhesive that has dried on here, and just that little bit of adhesive, you'll see when I try and put this little tab back in there, is enough for it to sort of grab onto, and it will keep that closed for you. So enjoy your little jack-o'-lanterns and your Divine Chocolates, and happy stampin'!